In economy, first up, Prime Minister Modi has embarked on his first official state visit to United States today. We'll get you all that is in the agenda. Also on the show, in one of the largest ever deals in aviation sector, IndiGo has placed orders for 500 Airbus A320 aircraft worth $50 billion. The Committee of Creditors to Distressed Airline GoFirst will, on 21st of June, which is tomorrow, review the airline's plan to resume operations and consider its funding requirements. We're also tracking the Securities and Exchange Board of India that has barred IIFL Securities from onboarding any new client for a period of 2 years on grounds of breach of Code of Conduct regulations of stockbrokers. Also, as per new study published by State Bank of India, the withdrawal of 2,000 rupee notes from circulation will be beneficial for the country's banking system. Also on the show, electric vehicles representative and the body has reached out to Minister of Commerce and Industry seeking support for EV industry facing embargo on utilization of FAME subsidy. We're tracking all those stories here right now on Newsline. With me at this point in time in the studio is Karthik Malhotra. Also with us is Amit Kumar Ranjan. The big story, of course, that we're tracking today, this morning. Good morning, Amit. Prime Minister has embarked on his first ever state visit to the US. He flew off this morning. We have, of course, visuals of that flight which he took off this morning. What's exactly on the agenda?
It's quite a plan. So tomorrow it will be International Yoga Day in New York. After that he goes to Washington. There'll be first he'll be meeting President Joe Biden in a private dialogue on June 22nd. June 22nd he will be addressing the joint session of both houses of Congress. That will be followed by a state dinner in his honor. Come to June 23rd, he'll be meeting Vice President Kamala Harris, followed by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. And then in the Ronald Reagan Center, he will be interacting with the Indian diaspora over there. So that is as far as the schedule is concerned.
Okay.
Expectations from the trip, apart from a mega deal in defense drones, and a joint venture of manufacture of engines for our own Tejas between General Electric and HAL. That is in the offing. Then another investment deal of $1 billion with the semiconductor company Micron. That's expected. Other than that, the focus is on critical and new technologies cooperation, which includes space, quantum, AI, to name a few. So this is the whole agenda. He'll be meeting 20 business leaders in the US. So yeah, it's quite a bit on his plate.
It's a power-packed agenda for the 3-day visit that he's going to be in the US, Karthik. This is much anticipated. This is also an honor to India. This is his first state visit, essentially not just deepening ties between India and US, but also portraying India as one of its closest allies at this point in time. So we are also hoping to, in fact, in this order, ink pacts and deals that could be beneficial to both the countries.
No doubt, Shweta. And I think it goes on to show very, very clearly that, yeah, Modi means business. And whether it is business in the brick and mortar sense of business that we understand, or business even diplomatically or politically. So Modi is there to conduct business. Modi is there to get the greenbacks into India by way of investments and deepen the political diplomatic ties that in any case are at an all-time high right now. Given the kind of fallout that US has had with China, given the kind of fallout that the world has had with Russia, and in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, India is still one neutral party which has neither sided with the West on the sanctions nor directly with Russia on the war. So we continue to be an independent player with a mind of our own, with business of our own, minding our own business and making the best of it. Now, I think specifically defense is going to be one sector that will get augmented to a great extent through this visit.
Okay.
We've already placed the order for the Predator drones. The engines for Tejas that Amit talked about is of course historic, because India has not really had a great stint at producing engines for its military or civilian aircraft. So the aircraft order, which will which with GE is going to be embedded within the Tejas produced by HAL, is going to obviously be historic in its own right. Now add to that of course AI, quantum computing. We've seen what Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the MOS for IT, had said to the business counterparts in the US, that AI is something and IT is something that India is heavily invested in, and it could be as much as 20% of India's GDP in the next few years. So, and a massive jump from 11% at present to about 20%. So, these are areas where a partnership is likely to be forged. And of course, some of the people that Prime Minister Modi would be meeting in the US belong to the IT sector, belong to the business community. And whatever deals we are able to ink and whatever ties we are able to strengthen will only go to further to sort of, bolster ties between India and US.
Absolutely. And we'll keep a close watch on that story. As and when details emerge, whenever Prime Minister lands in the US, he is of course taken off this morning at about 7 o'clock, we're given to understand. But we'll keep bringing you all the details. Shifting focus to another important story that we're tracking this morning and coming in from aviation sector, we're given to understand IndiGo has placed a mega order with Airbus, Amit, and this mega order will ensure that IndiGo is primed to be one of the biggest aviation players, not just in India, but also worldwide.
Yeah, it is single largest purchase order in commercial aviation history globally. So 500 narrow body planes with Airbus. Indian airlines have broken records in 2023 two times, 470 in February by Air India, and now it's 500. So
they've broken the previous records.
Two Indian companies in the year 2023 itself. So that's what aviation sector, you can broadly probably it looks like for India. They're thinking big.
Okay.
The aviation industry, the value is 50 billion of this order. The order book alone of IndiGo now stands at 1,330 planes. They already have 830 before this. So that's where it stands. If I can give you a brief background of how many IndiGo has been purchasing and how fast they have been growing. They started in 2005 with 100 A320s. 2011 they added 180 A320s. 2014 another 250 A320s, and these were the new engine options. And 2019 they added 320, and now this is another 500 with totaling to 1,330 that are still in the order.
Okay, so with about 1,000 aircrafts, it currently has 500, about 480, has ordered additional 500, a total about 1,000 upward of that. It is also primed to take on international routes, and in fact just yesterday DGCA also gave an approval to Vistara and IndiGo to take to international routes. So there are grand plans here, and IndiGo is ensuring that it gets as much aircrafts in its books, as much preparation in place in order to take off and realize those plans.
So they're targeting two continents. So between June and September 2023, they are hoping to increase Africa and Central Asian routes by 174 new flights. And then this, the new purchase basically is aimed at 30% increase in their European operations. So basically the focus right now for IndiGo is international and mostly West, Africa, Central Asia and Europe.
Okay, and this is good news. Even as we're hearing GoFirst and its revival plans, we know that Committee of Creditors are now looking and ratifying the revival plan that has been forwarded, in a sense, has been prepared for DGCA, for authorities to take a look at and give, not just get money back to the airline in order to kickstart operation. It also has about 200 crores from the government's emergency credit line, Karthik. So it has enough money in its books, and the Committee of Creditors now will be looking at the final plan, we'll ratify it, we'll send it to DGCA, hopefully we'll come back. Do you think it can still meet the June end deadline?
So
it's
we
too
know
close
for
a
sure,
call.
it's too close, it's too close. We know for sure that till June 22nd, which is just 2 days from now, flights continue to be suspended. Now tomorrow 21st June is when the COC, Committee of Creditors, is going to take a very deep, clear look at the revival plan that GoFirst has to offer. Now, you're right, about 200 crores from the government's emergency credit line guarantee scheme continues to be unutilized by GoFirst right now, but estimates suggest that it may require up to 400 crores, anything between 200 to 400 crore rupees to actually kickstart its revival. And I think that is the plan that will get presented tomorrow. And if the creditors give it a thumbs up and were able to write another check or two for GoFirst to, for thereabouts 200 crores, for GoFirst to resume operations, then I think the flight to revival recovery is going to take off much quicker than otherwise anticipated. But you never know what kind of hurdles prop up again, and whether the COC will give a go ahead to that new revival plan or not is something that we don't know. We are not privy to what that plan really entails.
Right.
So I think we'll have to look at the news story tomorrow and see where it takes GoFirst. As of now, flights continue to be suspended till the 22nd of June.
Right.
But only till the 22nd of June. So maybe the airline is hopeful that 23rd June onwards it can resume operations. So let's see.
Okay, but that is still too close a call, Amit. And good news there for, I think, largely aviation sector with IndiGo's new order book, with GoFirst hopefully will likely to come back by end of June. There's some green shoots finally appearing in aviation sector. Largely, a lot of gloom and doom that it has seen in the past month and a half is behind it.
Yeah, and there is, if I may take it a little technical, there is a similarity between IndiGo and GoFirst.
A similarity?
Yeah, it's a sort of a technical similarity.
They would like to hear that.
Yeah. You must have heard of this name Pratt & Whitney very often.
Absolutely.
So the new aircrafts that IndiGo has ordered are the new engine options, which are mostly the suppliers of which are mostly which use the Pratt & Whitney PW1100 GJM engine or the CFM LEAP 1A engine. So that is a similarity. The new aircraft that these people have ordered use the Pratt & Whitney engine manufactured by Pratt & Whitney. They call NEO, new engine option. So that is the similarity between Pratt & Whitney. Has the name has appeared quite a few times as one of the suppliers of engines to GoFirst also. So yeah, so that is the
So Pratt & Whitney, as per my understanding, continued to provide engines to the aircraft that IndiGo used to fly, except that IndiGo had a much larger fleet size and better negotiation with Pratt & Whitney, and hence it did not. That's where I think the dissimilarity comes in.
Right.
Yeah. That is where it did not fall into the trap of faulty engines. Exactly.
So they did not face similar problems with Pratt & Whitney, largely on account of, from what we've been hearing from experts, number one, they have a better negotiation, better deal with Pratt & Whitney, which
and more watertight contracts.
And a more watertight contract, which essentially means that every time there is a problem with servicing, every time there's a problem with the engine, Pratt & Whitney jumps into action, takes care of their needs, which hasn't happened in case of GoFirst.
And now with 500 new aircraft, I'm sure they're going to set up a base here, the MRO, the maintenance and the office that maintains aircraft. So I think MROs are going to be set up, which in any case, I think if we were to take this story larger with this record order, though, I mean, just to put all of us and our excitement a little at ease, all these orders from Air India as well as IndiGo are for about a decade or so, right? So they are going to be realized only by 2030 or so, end of this decade. So it's not that we are getting those 470 Air India aircraft or the 500 IndiGo aircraft tomorrow.
Right.
In fact, like Amit said, about 1300 aircraft for IndiGo are already pending, yet to be delivered. So this just adds to that 1300 number, or it's part of that 1300 number. That's the total number, total order book. So so I think the highlight of these large orders going from airlines operating in India is the fact that MROs are going to be based in India, and all airline operators are should expect to get better service, better rates, more trained manpower for maintenance of their respective fleets. And I think the split order between Boeing and Airbus in the case of Air India and this 500 Airbus exclusive order by IndiGo suggests that Airbus is likely to have a greater foothold in Indian skies, or rather a better cloud presence in Indian skies as opposed to Boeing. So I think any airline that flies Airbus aircraft should expect better service and better quality control here in India.
Absolutely, but good news there, even if it's for a longer timeline, the timeline will not be realized anytime soon. It would be end of decade, but a mega order placed there by IndiGo comes on the back of Air India Vistara also placing an order of upward of 450 aircrafts and 500 there. So essentially, aviation sector in India primed to take up a stronger position, hopefully by end of this decade. But we're going to shift focus to another important story that we're tracking, and coming in from Sebi, which is the markets regulator, has barred IIFL Securities from onboarding new client for a period of good 2 years on the grounds that it breached code of conduct and regulations. Krishna joining us to talk more on that. Krishna, what exactly are the allegations here?
Right, Shweta, this is part of Sebi, the market regulator's investigations into the books of IIFL Securities from 2011 to 2017. Incidentally, this particular inspection took place in 2014, and it tracked the books of IIFL from 2011 to 2013, and the inspection began in 2014. And in the time, it's been more than 6 years of investigation into IIFL's books, and the Sebi incidentally had issued a show cause notice to IIFL in 2017 in the month of May, and in 2021, in the year 2021 in the month of October. 2 show cause notices were issued to IIFL, and now comes this order which essentially bars IIFL Securities from taking on any new clients for the next 2 years, and that's because, according to Sebi's investigation, IIFL Securities has failed to differentiate its own funds from that of its clients' funds, and that it has also misused a lot of those funds. And all of these are, and Sebi, in fact, in its order has said that, can't wait for, the whole thing to blow up before we take action. And, can't wait for a default is what Sebi said before we take action. So Sebi cracking down on IIFL Securities, and for now, it cannot take on new clients for 2 years. It has to explain it to Sebi. Incidentally, IIFL Securities has appealed to the Securities Appellate Tribunal, or the SAT, against Sebi's order, and IIFL has come out and said that the current transactions, the current clientele will not be affected. The current flow of funds will not be affected by Sebi's order, and that it will appeal against the Sebi order at the Securities Appellate Tribunal. That's the latest coming in. And more importantly, this order that came in yesterday evening has started to impact the IIFL stock when it opened for trading this morning. The IIFL stock is currently down around nearly 19% ever since trading opened, because of this news that Sebi is barring IIFL Securities from onboarding any new clients for the next 2 years. And Sebi making it very clear that this is a matter that needs to be urgently taken up, can't wait for a default to happen. And in fact, the technicality wise, Sebi has found that IIFL has flagrantly violated a 1993 Sebi circular and has failed to segregate its own funds from that of its clients. All these are the details emerging from Sebi's order and an investigation that went on for more than 6 years, after which 2 show cause notices were issued to IIFL. Nothing happened, and now finally Sebi has come out and completely barred IIFL Securities from onboarding 2 clients. And the stock, IIFL Securities stock, is down 19%, Shweta. So we'll have to see whether IIFL's appeal against the Sebi order at the Securities Appellate Tribunal will give the company any relief or not.
Okay. How about the current clientele of IIFL, people who've invested money, people who've used services? Do they have anything to worry about, or about the funds with IIFL?
Said, along with the statement, when it said that we are appealing the Sebi order against the Securities Appellate Tribunal, has already made it clear, IIFL Securities has made it very clear, the current clientele, the current funds will not be affected by the Sebi order.
Okay, the current clientele will not be affected, but the stock is down as much as 18%, 19% latest, what Krishna is saying. These are some very serious allegations and violation of norms laid out by Sebi specifically. A lot of people would be worried at this point in time, Karthik, people who have funds with IIFL, as to what the larger impact could be.
No, but I think the job of the market regulator is to protect those very people who have invested in the markets using the services of a player like IIFL, and hence I think the preemptive step of not waiting for IIFL Securities to default has prompted Sebi to get into action. But again, I mean, does it really take 8 years? The investigation started in 2014. Does it take 8 years? 9 years almost. We are in 2023. Does it take 9 years for for barring of a fraudulent or an alleged fraudulent security company take, I mean, it should not take about a decade. That is grouse number one. But I think the case is interesting because of its complexities. So from what I understand, and Krishna, you might be able to correct me if my understanding is wrong, but from what I understand, this was a case where 4 bank accounts were opened by IIFL Securities, including bank accounts with private banks, where all the money that the investors investing into the market through IIFL Securities, they parked their money there, and IIFL Securities parked its own money in the same accounts without really differentiating between a client account and its own account.
Okay.
Which means there is this large pool of corpus not segregated between client A, client B, client C, client D and the company itself, rather this one large pool in which all the inflows would go and from which all the outflows would happen. So in a sense, all clients with a credit balance were pretty much taking the hit on their money for all clients with a debit balance in the same, holding accounts with IIFL Securities. So broadly, it's a very complicated book that got maintained, books of accounts that got maintained by IIFL, where it became increasingly difficult to audit and understand the money resident in those 4 bank accounts belonged in what proportion to whom. And that led to, these long investigations and about a decade to finally get to bar IIFL Securities. But IIFL, I remember back in the day, was one of the better, more trusted brokers and interfaces to go ahead and trade. So the investigation has been on for a while. It should not have taken a decade, during which thousands, maybe lakhs of other clients would have been onboarded by IIFL Securities in the same financial trap that it was operating in. Right, Krishna? Is that broadly what the case is about?
So, Karthik, just to add to what you were saying, you were talking about the length of the period of investigation. Sebi did issue, as I've been talking about, a show cause notice to IIFL in 2017 and in 2020, as recent as October 2021. It's interesting what went on between 2017 to 2021, as Karthik was rightly pointing about this investigation. And Karthik, this is relates to the books of the company between the years of 2011 and 2013 that got inspected in the year 2014. And eventually, after 3 years of investigation, a show cause notice was issued in 2017. And then again in 2021 October. So it's, as along with the complexities that Karthik you mentioned, it gets even more complicated to understand why it took so long. And as you're rightly pointing out, in all this time, all the new clients who have been onboarded, what happens to them? Why were they onboarded when there's such a big cloud of concern over a company like IIFL Securities? And Karthik, also, you're talking about the credit balance. Sebi also says that IIFL misused clients' funds in the credit balance, not just about parking its own funds and not being able to segregate. IIFL also is now accused of misusing clients' funds in the credit balance. So these are very serious allegations, and this is what Sebi was investigating into starting from the year 2014. We are in 2023, nearly a decade since the investigations began, and now we understand that they are finally stopped from onboarding new clients for the next 2 years. And Karthik, bear in mind, even this could be overturned if the Securities Appellate Tribunal thinks otherwise.
Okay.
True. But again, 3 years for show cause notice number 1, 4 years from there for show cause notice number 2. I mean, I think this is a regulator responsible for protecting the wealth of shareholders.
And action literally a decade after it bungled up the books. So the
and hopefully some action unless SAT overturns it, like Krishna mentioned.
So of course, preemptive action there, but a little too late, as some would say. Literally 10 years after IIFL bungled up its books, it cannot onboard any new clients, customers for a period of 2 years, according to the Sebi order. SAT will be hearing IIFL's plea from here on. Shifting focus now, State Bank of India in a report says that withdrawal of 2,000 rupee notes from circulation was in fact beneficial to country's banking system. How is that, Karthik?
So Shweta, I'm pretty glad to read that report because it ratifies practically everything that you, Rakesh, and I discussed in our other bigger studio. The moment demonetization, so-called demonetization or withdrawal of 2,000 rupee notes happened, and it's alluding to all of that. So basically the report suggests that about 3.3 trillion rupees worth of deposits have shored up with Indian banks. So this is a case of reliquidation of banks. So this is claim number 1 that we had made on the evening when this order was released by RBI. So 3.3 trillion rupees is big money, which has recapitalized the books of saving bank accounts, right? About 81% of this has gone to term deposits, right? Now, term deposits, unlike the saving accounts, offer better interest rates to customers. But the report also suggests that as much as 30% of these deposits could actually be used to repay existing loans. So clients who have taken loans from banks have now put 2,000 rupee notes back into the bank account, converted that into a term deposit. About 3 out of every 10 people who have made these term deposits will use this corpus to repay their loans, reducing risk of NPA, reducing risk of any other misdoing in the books of the banks. So those fears get removed. The third interesting point, which again we had referred to, was that are we withdrawing these large currency notes to give a fillip to the e-rupee, the central bank digital currency? And that is the third point which the RAP report by SBI mentions, that this move could in fact give a good shot in the arm to the central bank digital currencies, basically making currencies paperless and really moving towards a cashless India going forward. And then with this overall reliquidation of banks, there is enough money available with banks to be able to increase the credit offtake for corporate India. So now that you're flushed with funds, you don't have to go borrowing more money from RBI at the prevailing high interest rates. Remember, we are in a high interest rate regime. So banks don't need to go and borrow money from the RBI at a high repo rate. Rather, it can utilize the existing corpus of 3.3 trillion rupees available right now to lend to industry. And industry will then be able to offtake this credit and redeploy it in other growth engines of the economy. And this comes on the back of the CDR, the credit deposit ratio of banks, now for the first time in the last 3 years reaching the pre-COVID levels. So overall, I think all the hypotheses that we had made in the studio on the evening of the 2,000 rupee note withdrawal gets ratified in this SBI report.
I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, for the consumers who are watching out there, does this mean that there could be I understand it would not be immediate, but could loans get cheaper since banks have more money now?
So banks will have the discretion to give a discount on loans of a large ticket size. If you want to go and buy a car or take a home loan for, let's say, 50 lakh rupees or so, it is unlikely that the bank is going to make a concession to you. But if a corporate entity was to approach a bank and negotiate an interest rate with this availability of excess funds in the bank, I think the corporation will be able to negotiate a better interest rate without the bank losing much, because it is only redeploying this money back for economic growth and getting an interest rate, as opposed to going back to RBI and borrowing more currency at a prevailing high interest rate. So I think individuals seeking personal loans, car loans, home loans will not expect a rate cut, an official rate cut in banks. But corporate India or a government institution wanting to borrow a large sum of money will be able to negotiate a better rate.
Okay, so that could be possible. Question number 2. You know, the idea behind 2000 rupee note withdrawal was largely a lot of people will come back and exchange it for a cleaner note, literally cleaner note. But with banks now being flushed with cash, are we to believe that more and more people deposited that money as opposed to exchanging that money?
That's right. That's right. That is what seems to be the case, that that a lot more number of people actually reflushed their accounts with money rather than exchange a 2000 rupee note for 400-500 rupee notes. So that 2000 rupee notes went back to their accounts, and then overall, of course, you know, so many people making the same transaction led to the swelling up of liquidity in banks.
Okay, so all in all, right now it looks like it's been good news. This latest report by SBI points to how withdrawal of 2000 rupee notes augurs well for the banking sector. But we're going to shift focus for now. Another important story that we're tracking, and that is coming in from SIPs, systematic investment plans. We are given to understand that notwithstanding the record inflows, and Krishna, perhaps you can come in, it appears that number of SIPs redeemed by people have gone up by 7%. Essentially means more and more people are withdrawing money from SIP as opposed to putting in more money. Why exactly is that?
Right. Shweta, straight off the bat, the 7% drop that you're witnessing in the month of May, 7% increase in redemptions of SIP, increase in discontinuation of SIPs, 7% increase in the month of May, comes on the back of worries about valuations, market valuations affecting, SIP investments. So there has been an increase in the month of May because of all the volatility in the markets, and it is showing up. The fact of the matter is that, Shweta, as we're concerned about the rise of discontinuation of SIPs, the overall pie of SIPs continues to grow. So if you're talking about investors worried about valuations, we're talking about all existing SIP investors from the big cities who have been investing in SIPs for quite a while. But SIPs as an option, as a financial product option, continues to grow, and that's because people from smaller cities, investors from smaller cities, are continuing to buy a fresh SIP. So the growth of fresh SIPs is around 26% as compared to the drop or the discontinuation of SIPs, which is around 7%. So that really tells the story of what exactly is going on. You have 7% redemptions from existing SIP investors, possibly from the big cities, because of their own concerns about valuations, whereas many from the smaller cities continue to view SIP as a great investment option and continuing to infuse fresh funds into it. And that's also showing in the assets under management of SIPs, which is risen by 5% to 7.5 lakh crore rupees. The numbers tell two stories. One is a story of concern over valuations and whether SIPs as a financial product are giving the kind of returns that you want, that you need, and those concerns forcing people to discontinue SIPs. And the other is the continuing growth of SIPs in the smaller cities and towns. The other main thing that you need to look at over here is that these discontinuations come on the back of the pause function that was introduced in SIPs during COVID times. That's when investors were given the option to just pause on their SIP installments because of the job losses, salary cuts, shortage of funds. So then the SIP investors were given during COVID times the option of the pause button. Here's what happens with that pause button. If you continuously pause for 3 consecutive installments, then that entire SIP gets shut down and discontinued. And there's a good chance that this rise of 7% in SIP redemptions or discontinuations could be because of a continuation of those many pauses that many investors chose to take because that option was available to them. So we have to wait and watch whether this discontinuation trend continues to grow, continues to become a bigger problem. But for now, the fact of the matter is that it could be an outcome of the pause option given to investors in SIPs, Shweta.
Okay, but net, since the SIP registrations have been up by 26%, discontinuation is at 7%, net, there's been an inflow of people registering an SIP by approximately 19%.
No, that's right. You're talking about an inflows of around 14 lakh crore rupees. So the SIP industry continues to chug on. Yes, it had issues during COVID times. It sort of recovered from it by giving this pause option. But fact of the matter is that more and more new investors are taking to SIPs, and that means fresh infusion of funds into the SIP market, into the SIP industry. That continues. The question is, will the number of discontinuations come down so that the net additions keep going up and up and up? Because, at the end of the day, the famous tagline for SIP, Shweta, mutual funds, sahi hai. I think that's the right way of going about it, in these extremely volatile financial times that we live in. At least the numbers telling us that people still continue to have huge amounts of faith, especially those who are not invested in SIPs before, who are invested in other financial products before. They are taking to SIPs, first-time SIPers, if I may, first-time SIP
sippers,
buyers.
the first-time sippers.
Are continue to grow. But people like Karthik, me, who have been invested in SIPs for a while, maybe we are turning a little skeptic, because of the volatility that we see around us, Shweta.
Yeah, the volatility, of course, is a major cause of concern. Apart from the pause button that Krishna was referring to, 3 consecutive pauses essentially means your SIP is paused or redeemed.
That's right.
Or halted there. But apart from that, the volatility in the market could be another reason why people are going for other financial products like an FD for that matter, Karthik.
So, Shweta, it's interesting. You know what happens, especially with first-time SIPers or sippers, as Krishna was referring to. First-time investors are looking for instant returns. Hey, let me invest 1,000 rupees today and I want the markets to make it 2,000 rupees tomorrow. It doesn't work like that, right? The best of investors will tell you that you can never time the market. And that and the kind of growth that we saw in the stock markets, in the mutual fund industry through SIPs, in the year 2020, when markets were down, people were sitting at home, they had all the time in the world, they had access to the internet and a laptop, and they said, hey, let's go ahead and trade. And that is where a lot of millennials and a lot of Gen Zs got, they took their first baby steps into the world of investing into market-linked securities, including mutual funds. And the kind of returns that they saw, because the market was at an all-time low, and then there was this K-shaped recovery, not just in the economy but in the markets also. There was a steep growth towards the end of 2020. And people who had invested 10,000 rupees made as much as 30,000, 40,000 rupees within a year. So they said, hey, I can expect a 3x return. I can expect a 2.5x return on my investments. But that is not true today, because markets in any case are trading high. There is volatility, but volatility at a high level where every day you're looking at not more than a 2% up or down, right? And you're not likely to be in a situation where markets will go, let's say, from 62,000 levels on the Sensex or 19,000 levels on the Nifty to anything more than about 10-12% over the next 1 year. So there is volatility, there is this greed for instant returns, which is completely elusive right now. And then, of course, like I mentioned, we are in a high interest rate cycle. Bank FDs are offering better returns than what they were offering in 2020, 2021. So many people would perhaps be redeeming their slightly riskier market-linked investments and withdrawing that money or pausing that and instead opting for a fixed deposit, which is offering a better return right now. Though overall, most financial planning experts or personal finance experts will tell you that over, let's say, a 10 to 12 year horizon, markets are expected to give you better returns than bank instruments. And over, let's say, a 3-year to 5-year period, if you look back, then markets and gold have given you more or less similar returns.
Right.
But real estate and bank-linked investments have, over long periods of time, not surpassed the returns that you get from the markets.
Okay. Okay. Financial advice coming in there from Karthik at
No,
this point
just
in
information,
time,
no
but
advice.
Just information. Interestingly, important updates there coming in by the way of systematic investment planning. We are given to understand that the number of people who've redeemed their SIPs in May have been up by 7%. People who registered for SIP has also gone up by 26%. Net, there's been an increase. However, looks like more new number of people are redeeming. This could just be a temporary factor, could be a temporary not to be alarmed, but something that is happening right now may reverse itself. The trend may reverse itself in the months to come ahead. But shifting focus now to another important story that we're tracking, coming in from electric vehicle space, where we're given to understand that electric vehicle body has met with Minister of Commerce Piyush Goyal in order to appeal to him, Karthik, that we know that there is a pause on subsidy, but it is important because we've already sold the vehicles under FAME scheme, FAME 2 that we are referring to, and it would be nice to get the money back.
Yeah, so Shweta, claims of about 1,200 crore rupees through multiple OEMs are lying pending with the Ministry of Heavy Industries. Now, there are, of course, two conflicting views here. One, of course, initially was that many OEMs had flouted the FAME subsidy rules and had charged excessively over and above the price of the electric scooters sold in terms of selling the charger separately or the software separately, etc. But then those issues were contested, and I think 2 or 3 players were found to have misdone or misutilized the funds, and the rest of them were paid their dues. But 1,200 crore rupees is still pending to be disbursed on account of the subsidy that OEMs have already disbursed back to the end consumer. So this is credit lying on the books of OEMs, and 1,200 crore rupees is a sizable amount for small and medium enterprises and homegrown startups and those companies that availed the Make in India scheme and the Startup India scheme to use the FAME subsidy and start manufacturing and selling electric vehicles. They now seem to be at a loss because this money remains unrealized. And this is a huge chunk of money which could eventually, the fears that SMEV has cited in its letter to Piyush Goyal, now asking for the Commerce Minister to intervene because it seems to be a case of stalemate at MHI. So asking the Commerce Minister now to intervene, suggesting that this 1,200 crore rupees is a big enough hole burnt in the pockets of OEMs, which could result in insolvency, bankruptcy of OEMs, or eventually them selling out their businesses to the best bid they get, and that best bid may not be another SME or another Indian company. It could be somebody from abroad coming to make a footprint into the Indian EV story, picking up these companies for tatters. And that's not the kind of situation that the SMEV letter cites that the government of India or the Indian corporate India environment needs to be seen in light of.
Okay.
And he's calling, in fact, Suhinder Gill has gone on record to say that the situation right now is dire, and the message that we are sending out to global industry watchers is in fact not a good message.
Not a good message at all. Let me quickly also get in Krishna at this point in time. Krishna, OEMs that suddenly became the talk of the town, started propping up every now and then, started mushrooming on the back of a mega subsidy that was being offered by the government. Government essentially rolled out a carpet for EV makers, and it told them to come set shop here, start manufacturing here, start assembling here, and we will make sure we will subsidize the business. As a result of which, lot of such OEMs propped up, but now they have money that they have already paid by the way of subsidy, which has been rolled out to the customers to the tune of 1,200 crores, and they're suffering at the moment. Their books are dwindling, and they have now appealed to the government to ensure that this amount at least is paid back if FAME subsidies is even discontinued and there is no FAME 3.
Right, and Shweta, we're also seeing a drop in the numbers as far as electric two-wheelers are concerned. They're down by nearly 10% in terms of sales because of the news of FAME subsidy being taken away. And the problem here is that you're looking at this is happening at a time when the electric vehicle sales, be it two-wheeler or three-wheeler or four-wheeler, are just about peaking in India. We sold more than 1 million electric vehicles in India last year. All two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler put together, more than 1 million. For the first time, electric vehicle sales crossed the 1 million mark. And exactly the year after that, all that helped the industry make that mark is being taken away. And one of the main things is that subsidy that you're talking about, the FAME subsidy. And what it also means as far as consumers are concerned is that one way or the other, the prices of the electric vehicles are going to go up. Two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, all of them are going to go up one way or the other when subsidies get taken away. And what is tragic is that original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, who are already difficult to find in this country, who are already, you have auto ancillary makers in this country for the regular auto industry, original equipment manufacturers for the EV industry who are already, working hard to push this EV bandwagon further and, taking risks of many kinds. Because look at it, anybody who's an OEM manufacturer for the EV industry right now is hoping for great growth.
Right.
Quantum growth, exponential growth in the years going forward, and of course, continued support from the government. This way, support from the government gets taken away, and so do the sales.
Right, absolutely. In fact, I spoke to somebody in SMEV yesterday, and they told me sales are down by as much as 60%. They're likely to in the month of June, and they're going to go further down if this continues. Of course, EV industry, two-wheeler in dire straits there. But shifting focus to another important story that's coming in from Byju's at this point in time. Amit, we are given to understand that Byju's is laying off as much as 1,000 more employees.
Yes, and with this the count of people laid off by Byju's goes up to 3,500. And this comes at a time when this Byju's is battling a term B loan they had taken to the tune of $1.2 billion in a US court for not having paid $40 million. Byju say that the claims of the lenders is predatory, but this layoff comes at that time. So obviously it's a case of cutting more corners and probably getting some money.
And Shweta, these are senior level employees. Valuations have dwindled from a $22 billion. It has come down to about a third of that, about $8 billion or so.
Byju saying unable to pay loans.
Funding winter, unable to pay loans because the business model is hit because COVID is pretty much behind us and schools have reopened. So not as many customers as it attracted earlier. And the kind of mass hiring they had done during the COVID times when the entire edutech industry got this shot in the arm is now under question. And they're all losing money and hence losing people. But I've been made to understand these are senior level people, those who have been with the company for the last 2 years and across multiple functions, including marketing, product, technology. So another 1,000 people from the Byju stock taking a hit.
Takes the total count to about 3,500 people, as Amit said, and a big hit there for employees who are currently working in Byju's. Another interesting, important story coming in from Byju's, not looking very good there for people who are working in Byju's. 1,000 senior people are expected to be laid off very, very soon. We will, of course, keep bringing you all those details right here on News 9. Thanks very much for watching.
Hello, baby. Can we talk on a video call?
रात में एक मैसेज हाय का मैसेज आया, मैं एक्सेप्ट किया, हाय हेलो हुआ और जैसे मैंने ऑन किया तो उसके वीडियो पर न्यूड वीडियो आया और मैं घबरा के, अगर ये वीडियो ये चाहे संदेश अगर सोशल मीडिया में जाती है, कहीं भी जाती है, तो मुझे सुसाइड करना ही पड़ेगा।
As the name suggests, it is made out of two words. One is sex, another is extortion. It becomes extortion.
They hit you at your emotions.
In last 1 year, close to 150 plus police officers from UP
they were victimized.
बहुत बड़ी खबर, वीडियो कॉल से ब्लैकमेलिंग का बड़ा खुलासा हुआ है। मथुरा से खबर है जहां सेक्सटोर्शन गैंग के 4 लोग पकड़े गए। హైదరాబాద్, ముంబై, జైపూర్ కేంద్రంగా ఈ గ్యాంగ్ కార్యకలాపాలు సాగిస్తున్నట్టుగా వీడియో కాల్ करके बनाते थे लोगों के अश्लील वीडियो।
Obviously, I do this for quick money. How do you think I can afford a iPhone Max Pro, a super costly handbag, and my own sedan? No big deal. I'll search social media, Facebook, Instagram, or in some cases, just use random numbers. In most cases, that because of the kind of work we do, actually, we know that they have a lot of money. I then send a friend request and wait for the other person to accept. The conversation starts generally with a hi. Later, the conversation shifts to WhatsApp, where actually the video calling happens.
India's 800 million internet users could rise to 1.5 billion by 2040. But there's a dark side to this. Blackmailers are duping people by posing as women on social media platforms and later sending them sexually explicit material. Fake videos trick victims into explicit video calls. Then comes the extortion threat.
Somebody will give you a video call, you pick up that call. On the other side, there will be some girl or some woman. That woman will be, doing all kind of activities, like she'll be nude. And most of the cases, such kind of cases which we have found, there is actually no woman. The other side is also a video is playing. Along with that, when you pick up the call, your video also gets transmitted. And this whole thing, these people record. Once they record it, they start threatening the person. I have seen many people, getting extorted like this.
This extortion has become a very easy method to extort people. Everybody is on internet, they do lots of video calls and they do FaceTime and many other platform that has evolved during this time, Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, everywhere. And just to